Hey everybody, and welcome to another LP Solidarity stream. Tonight's going to be a little different than me and Amanda telling you about what we'd like to see for the future. So it'll be me and Tom talking about the Mobility Independence Foundation and a little bit of a spotlight on Tom Queter's life in the future. For those who don't know, Tom, can you give an introduction to who you are?
Oh, wow. First and foremost, I'm a farm boy. I grew up on a farm.
Me too.
Yeah, born disabled, and the last name is Queter. Never quitter, rarely quieter. I'm. How do I say who I am? I mean, my title on the screen there says founder and president, which is true. Um, but what I really am is a problem solver. I had a problem. I solved it for myself. I recognized that a lot of other people have a problem, and there's a way to solve it for them too. Um, so that's why I founded the Mobility Independence Foundation. Um, and what we're seeking to do is to create open hardware to replace equipment that is, how do I put this? I know I'm not supposed to be negative, right?
You're perfectly willing. You're perfectly allowed to be negative on here. It's you're talking to libertarians, and we all hate the government. So
fair. Well, let's face it, right? When we ask the government to do something for us, we cannot expect good results. I mean, history, time and time again, over and over again, in this thing, that thing, and the other thing, has proven to us that government intervention and government dependent or dependence upon the government leads to limited choices and poorer quality results with a higher cost. Um, my stick, obviously, is power wheelchairs. And you can actually see our latest design right here. Um, I'm going to talk about other people for a minute. Children ages 3 to 7 have the highest denial rate for what's already been deemed medically necessary in terms of a power wheelchair. One of the reasons for that is that they don't really get training before that final decision. Right, the final decision is often made by taking a 3-year-old and putting him in an electric wheelchair and seeing how well he drives it. And that's it. No training. Once, right, denial. Then you got to go through the whole process again. Um, and, that in itself sounds terrible until you recognize that a 3-year-old's brain is growing and developing. It needs to experience the world around him or her. That child needs to touch grass, run through dog poop, um, you know, learn their spatial environment, interact with it. That's what really makes our brains grow at that age.
right.
All the flashcards and special kindergarten and pre-K in the world, what that really is doing is facilitating an interaction with an environment, the world around you, other people, various things, various concepts. And if you can't move, that becomes a lot harder. And so what can happen is now you not only have that physical disability, right? But you end up with a cognitive, right? You fall behind, right? You
Right.
don't learn and develop as you should, and therefore it compounds the disability. It can become behavioral disability over time. People get angry over being stuck. I know I
Right.
do. Um, and
So
and in terms of children, right?
mhm.
Um, this design came about trying to create a open source, low cost training wheelchair. But the reality is, if it's open hardware, it doesn't have to be just a training wheelchair. If it's what you like, or if you get denied otherwise, you still have a wheelchair. And
Right.
this came out of a contest with Arizona State University. Um, there were several designs, and this is the winning design. Uh, they all had to come in under $500. It all has to be off the rack tech and materials that you can just purchase and use. And this one came in at about $450, if I remember right. And what parent wouldn't find $450,
Right.
right? Um,
It,
so
those are good guys.
Yeah, and that just solves the problem, right? So we have the designs and we have the how, and that will be released by the end of the month. We are also hoping to release the base of the endurance power chair. That's everything but the seating system.
I don't know anything about that one.
And not at all, huh, Kyle?
No. For those who are unaware, I have been working on some of the HID, the human interaction system for the chair for a bit now, which is why I have made jokes with this joystick before. This is the joystick intended for the prototype of the endurance chair, which anyone that knows Tom knows that that chair has to be rugged because Tom does not stay on any terrain you would expect of someone like Tom. Tom goes up and down mountains. Tom's off-roader. So, thereby, after looking at the specs for a bunch of chairs out there and noticing that they were lightly dust resistant and they were, resistant to rain, it was like, no. We need something that is completely dust proof and at least good enough to get like pressure washed sometimes without it going haywire, because I could believe Tom goes through a pressure washer here and there.
It has happened.
So let's step back a bit. How old were you when your parents realized they could hook you to the plow?
So interestingly, I actually started working in the garden when I was 2 years old, and I didn't have a wheelchair until I was 4.
Gotcha.
I had the kind of mentality where if you didn't include me in things, I was going to go do worse things, right? So they knew if they wanted to keep track of me, they had to have me involved in what the family was doing. And we've always raised our own produce as well as meat and taken game and forage. It's just a way of life here. So, not including me in what the family was doing was a very good way to make sure that I was going to get myself in trouble.
It's from many a conversation, my understanding is that even knowing where you are, you often get yourself in trouble. If you didn't mind talking about like why you're in a chair in the first place and why that's your mobility method.
Yeah, so it's probably not obvious on camera right now, but I was born with this, what doctors call a severe condition. I don't like using the word severe. Osteogenesis imperfecta, and it's got a wide spectrum. But my personal doctors have told me that I was the lowest bone density or worst case scenario they've seen living, and also the most improved. And what does that mean? By the time I was 16, I had over 1,000 fractures. Now that I'm 42, we're estimating around 2,000. My doctors and I. And I know that sounds horrible. I don't cry. It's okay. The advantage here is that I know how to set my own bones when they break. I actually did that last September.
I don't know if I think of that one as a advantage, but we'll take it.
Well, I mean, imagine you're in a situation where you need to set a bone and there isn't a doctor around.
Sure.
Yep. That was my situation on the Amtrak last September. Yeah. So, the reality is that with a condition like mine, if you're tenacious enough to do more than survive, right, but to also thrive, you become a problem solver. And Dave is absolutely correct. The right to repair is automatically built into open hardware. You can look at the designs, figure it out. You can buy replacement parts. You can do it, right? That's the point. And so back to me as a kid and how this all came about.
Right.
Like I said, I was 4 years old when I got my first wheelchair. I was actually 3 years old the first time I ran away from home. I thought I was being sneaky and slick and just, having an adventure.
How does that work?
So at that time, I locomoted by sitting on my butt and pushing with my hands, and even outside. And I was given a boundary by my parents because there was kind of a steep hill. If I rolled down it, I'd break everything. Um, it wasn't a very big hill, but it was steep. And so I sat there for months playing and looking at that boundary, looking at that hill, and I decided, you know what, there's a way to do this. I'm going to do it. And that was just to shimmy down at an angle and, that braced myself. And I did
Right.
get down well safely. But then, I'm at the bottom of this really steep, although short hill. And I'm thinking to myself, it's going to be really hard to get up there. I don't think I can do it. And so I'm already going to be in trouble. I might as well keep going. Right? I mean,
Right.
if the consequences are already coming, you might as well get the most out of it. And I did make it a couple of rural yards, lawns away, which is, I don't know, 400 to 600 yards, as a probably 10-pound 3-year-old. Um, and mind you, living in a rural area where dogs run free, and, if a dog picked me up and shook me, I was going to die. But I kind of knew that, and I kind of didn't care because, we say this a lot in the organization. It is about more than surviving. It is about thriving.
Yep.
Life is about having a purpose. Happiness comes from having a purpose. And, everybody needs that purpose. And I guess mine is to bring the solution that I ended up finding for myself to the rest of the world. 2014, I was denied an adequate wheelchair. I was offered a range of wheelchairs that were inadequate. And for my condition, I know my body shape doesn't show very well, but let's just say my legs are kind of messed up.
If you'd like, I do have your Facebook pulled up. If you'd like one of the shots from the aquarium or any of those things.
Sure.
Okay. That is easy enough to do. So, and you don't have to stop talking while I'm pulling this up. Everyone will see it in a second here.
So I was denied the wheelchair, and I had reapplied for the same one I'd had several times before, and it was still on the market. Yeah, see, upside down feet right there, and a good cup of coffee.
So I want everyone on there.
So 2014, I was denied, and this is after over 20 appointments to justify it, right? And told to choose from a range of wheelchairs that would lead to injury and going to the bed. When you have a disability or you're elderly, going to the bed means you're not coming back. And I was not ready to accept that.
Yeah.
And so I spent 2 years fighting and appealing, and I actually won that appeal. They approved me getting that wheelchair, but that was 1 month after they stopped manufacturing it because no one was buying it, because no one was approving it, right? So that means I'm the only guy that tried that hard, right? And and I got there 1 month too late. And so I'm still in this wheelchair that's older, lacking maintenance, breaking down, right? You fix one thing and something else would break down and so on. And
for those who are unaware, a lot of the parts on the wheelchairs are either set up with a proprietary controller or they've got while this is a generic joystick so that it's replaceable, they'll have gotten their own branded one from someone, and you can't swap it because it knows if that's the right part or not. So this is actually a really big problem.
Not only that, but they don't give you the specs for any of the design, right? So for the average person who's lifelong disabled, a fabricator might be able to look at it and say, yeah, I can just make that piece. But someone in a wheelchair who's living that way isn't going to understand what's possible half the time.
Right.
And even then, do you know you have the right metal? There's a lot to it. So for a period of 5-ish years, I was splitting my meager income on SSI after rent between automating things in my house, like making the lights voice activated, remote control keyboard and mouse for the computer, and preparing to try and hang on to my sanity as I, went to the bed, as it were, um, and buying used parts for my wheelchair. And in the process, at one point of looking for parts, I was looking at a rear end assembly and was using the eBay app, right? Um, that's correct, David, right to repair. And the eBay app, at least at that point in time, would always show you like just a little bit of the next item, and swipe left, right? And I was looking at it, man, that looks like a wheelchair, the wheelchair, right? And I swiped, and it was the exact chair that I needed. Had about 16 hours of use on it, right? Think about that. It was
Yeah.
20 years old and only 16 hours of use on it. But there's nothing more lucky for me in that situation than finding
Right.
that. But then, another problem. It's $4,500 plus shipping from Texas. Um, for those who don't know, if you're on SSI, you're not allowed to save more than $2,000.
Right.
There are some programs that you can go through if you want to beat your head against the wall and waste your time and efforts in life on bureaucracy that will sort of allow you to save more if you work, and it's strange. But it's a pain in the butt. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Uh, no regular person would go through that lengths to earn a little bit of money. And I made a joke about it, right? Humor is a coping mechanism. And
Yep.
Kyle, you know me. How many jokes?
I'm surprised that there haven't been more so far here, to be honest.
Putting my professional face forward, Kyle.
You don't have to on here. You can be Tom.
Well, for the sake of the organization, I absolutely do.
Fair enough.
And there are many facets of Tom.
Also fair. For anybody who likes to see Tom let it hang out a little bit more, show up to any of the LP happy hours on a Friday. It's a good time.
That is fair. So that chair was there, and with shipping, it turned out to be about $6,500. It had to be created, it's custom work, and I screenshot it and I posted it on Facebook with, laughing faces, joking. If anybody wants to get me something for my birthday, which was coming up the following month, and has $4,500 plus shipping, this is what I'd like. It was a complete farce. I never thought it would happen, right?
Right.
And then my then personal care assistant was in the room with me, and my still friend from up the road saw that. They both saw it at the same time, right? So one's in front of me in person, and one's at their house up the road. He says it, and she messages me, and I swear it happened within like the 60 to 120 seconds, right? 1 to 2 minutes, they both said the same thing. Let's crowdfund it. I am used to, or at that time was used to, crowdfunding for others in similar situations. I'm more of a giver than a taker. So they actually had to have an argument with me to convince me to allow them to crowdfund it. And then, we went forth. And the interesting thing about that is in 2 months, that was crowdfunded, created, shipped, and modified for my specific needs. 2 months.
It's awesome.
It's unheard of in the systems today. And people are going to think, well, that was already manufactured. Of course, it only took 2 months. Well, what you get through the system today is already manufactured and sitting in a warehouse for quite some time. And the reality is that the approval, the box checking, the bureaucratic mess that our healthcare system has become means that depending on your situation and your specific needs, most people are waiting between 6 months and 3 years to receive a wheelchair. Um, I, as a libertarian, I actually had to call the cops last month. Um, I still advocate one-on-one for people when it comes up, right? When they're in front of me, I'm going to help you out. Um, and part of what we've been doing with the organization is networking other organizations and nonprofits that service this realm, right? There are a lot of them out there trying to fix wheelchairs because our systems don't. And so when somebody has a problem with a wheelchair, go to my outreach director, Chase Kahn. They're amazing. Um, and I asked, this guy's in this place. What do we know that's around him? So I can give him a list, reach out to, right? Because that's the other thing. I don't want to just do that work for somebody. I want to teach them how to advocate for themselves.
Sure.
Um, and so I got that list and I sent it to him. What had happened, I think he gained his injury in 2018, if I remember right. And so 7 years went by as he was pushing for recovery to get to the point where he could get this new chair that would give him more freedom and more autonomy in life, right?
Right.
Um, and he received that chair in May, and it was not set up for him. He couldn't use it. He ordered a mountain bike, and they gave him a big wheel. And you can imagine how that feels when you've been trying so hard and you've been struggling through some of the worst things that most of you can't even imagine. And to get that disappointment then and there. Um, about the day after I emailed him that list, I saw uh, what appeared to be a veiled threat of suicide posted on his Facebook wall. And I'm thinking to myself, because I've been there. I know what it's like to think that death is the way out.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking to myself, I can't just like call him and bring that up, because if somebody did that to me, I'd be mad, be angry, get out of my business. Um, but I had just sent him that email resources, and I am well aware from personal experience that talking to someone can really help.
Yeah.
So I called him to see if he had seen the email and if he had a plan to reach out to those organizations. I thought I could talk him through it a little bit, and maybe that would make him feel better. And maybe he had something to vent about. Maybe that would make him feel better. You never know, right? Just
Sure.
making that contact can do a lot of good. Well, it didn't go the way I thought. Um, he was so distraught, felt so hopeless. That he did vent, right? He did absolutely vent.
Sure.
Uh, but that venting ended quickly after, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. Um, he put a 30-minute deadline on ending his life and hung up. And I didn't know where he lived. And so I found the local sheriff and um, called. And, they don't call you back after you do that. It was quite the night for me waiting. But the next morning, I did see that post that had concerned me was taken down, and new posts that were not like that were up. Um, and later he would, in a commentary, he would call me, one of his best friends. I say, I barely know the man, but I did the right thing, right? But I think the point here is that it was that wheelchair that was the tipping point, right?
Yeah.
He received that in May, and here it was probably late July, early August, and still hadn't had that situation remedied.
Right.
Right? Um, of course, he's going to feel hopeless. And I can tell you that people go through that an awful lot. I've gone through it, right?
Yep.
I have been dissatisfied with the equipment provided to me. And the interesting thing about that, and we all know this, right? It's tax funded, right? It's a system through the government. But you don't pay for that wheelchair. Your insurance does, and your insurance might be through the government, and you might not pay for that. So to to be dissatisfied, let alone to that level, can make us feel like we are being ungrateful, or that other people will see us as ungrateful. Um, and I don't care who you are, you should be ungrateful for anything that's supposed to help you live your life and won't even get you outside your door.
Right.
Um, Kind of digressing in this, I still have feelings over this whole situation. When you
That's
deal with
fine.
people like this, you really get to know them. You really feel that pain, and my mind, at least, sees that it's entirely unnecessary. I mean, we all know that suffering is a part of life,
Sure.
uh, but unnecessary suffering doesn't have to be.
Right.
So that's where I hope our initiative can grow into. Um, we want to provide better quality options. We want to provide
So
cost benefit options.
stepping back slightly there, what is the MIF and how to get going, and then what is the goal? Like,
Um,
obviously, I know, but it's we
right,
got people
right.
watching. Yeah.
No, I get it. So the Mobility Independence Foundation, the main factor is in the name, mobility independence, right? The number one thing I hear from those with disabilities is I'd like to leave my own home. The number two thing that I hear is that the cracks that they cut in the sidewalk for heave, even before they've heaved, hurt. We have so much better technology available. Um, so the Mobility Independence Foundation seeks to create open hardware designs, more than one, more than two, as many as it takes, and release them for free to the world. Kyle, you want an endurance powered chair? You'll have access to that design, and if you want to build it, go forth and build it. Um, or if you know someone who needs one and you just want to do it for them. Um, Interestingly, all of these nonprofits that are scurrying to repair wheelchairs would much prefer to build a better wheelchair than to repair the same one month after month after month. Um, and we hit on some statistics that have come out. The main article is still on the front of our website. If you go to themif.org, 50% of all wheelchairs break down in a 6-month period in the United States of America. Think about that.
Hopefully, they would be fired. Is the answer? If they don't
Yeah,
get to,
yeah. Some of those bureaucrats are not so nefarious. Um, Technically, a social worker could be considered a bureaucrat. And it's their job to get to know you, usually 20 people at a time, and um, discover what it is you need and what kind of help you need. They go and they file the paperwork. It might be a piece of equipment, it might be a treatment. Um, and, most of the time, after they file that paperwork, the answer comes down that it's a no. And then that same social worker has to go back to these people that they've made friends with, that they
right.
know are suffering, and say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. So our initiative absolutely gets the bureaucrats out of the way and offers a better realm of social work. um, so,
So I'm going to go ahead and throw up on screen for anyone that wants to see and help out here. It'll stay up the rest of the time. There's a QR code that anybody can scan to get right to the MIF site. They've got a give butter set up about halfway down the page. You can find more out about, you can keep up with the newsletter and everything else. There's a picture, Tom.
that's actually a trailer for our documentary, The Power to Move. And it shows our journey with the endurance. So
I guess,
talking about fundraising though, it does take money. It absolutely does. And we have a plan to create the sequel to The Power to Move. And that sequel will be will be called Freedom Rules. And what we want to do is fund 3 custom builds of the Endurance Power Chair for different people who want to be and can be very active members of society, right? Um, if they want to go through the woods or just to work, we want to build them a chair. We're developing an application process so that we can try to choose the 3 best candidates.
JJ.
And we'd like to give everybody one, but give us a lot of money, we'll try. Um, the the point of that, though, is to show how easy it is to do. And this came about through a lot of things. In the first documentary, you will see us actually building one in 2 days on the floor of an expo.
So, I guess that that kind of leads into a question there. Why not just design a model of chair that people can buy and then sell the replacement parts and everything else up front?
So the current industry just doesn't do that. And if we tried to do that without community support, right, we need to create a movement of the disability or people with disabilities. Again, few people remember it was those with disabilities who peacefully held a municipal building for days. It was those with disabilities who shut down traffic in New York City and Washington, D.C. And that's what forced George Bush Sr. to sign the ADA. Whether you're for or against the ADA, I want you to think about this. Severely disabled people in wheelchairs held our government to the fire.
It's one of the things we talk about on the Solidarity stream all the time. The only way to make change is for us to stand together and raise hell.
Correct. So, there's this phrase, put up or shut up. I'm not one to shut up, so I guess we're putting up too. In the course of this, when I started this, I was like, man, I'm going to beat my head against the wall for the rest of my life and maybe move this an inch. Turns out we're not the only ones thinking this way. There are a lot of disabled-owned businesses creating their own solutions and trying to get it off the ground. There are a lot of open source initiatives or open hardware initiatives out there, and we're networked with them. And I think the problem has always been messaging, right? Again, back to the optics of our country and its systems of support. Strongest, richest, most powerful nation on earth just gave me a wheelchair. Of course, it's the best wheelchair possible. But the reality is, as libertarians, we talk a lot about weaponizing the government. Sometimes IP, the FTC, the FDA can be weaponized by corporations, and in this case, it has more to do with private equity firms. Right. They actually lobby in favor of a lot of these rules. They keep our tech, in the dark ages.
When I was looking for control system information, you can't find it for wheelchairs. And if you start looking at the regulations around the control systems for people who are in the chairs in the first place, you just about can't release a product unless you can afford an army of lawyers.
Yep. That's if you're releasing a product for sale that is sold as a medical device.
Right.
We can, however, create a company to sell the HID, because that HID could go on a lawnmower or a robotic kangaroo. I don't know about you, Kyle, but I'd kind of like a robotic kangaroo.
I'm down. I'm a big fan of the band Steve Powered Giraffe, so I would take a steam powered kangaroo.
And I want to see the endurance base be turned into an automatic lawnmower. I hate mowing the lawn, but it's designed to be a 30-year platform minimum with maintenance. It's got lithium iron phosphate batteries, so I treat it like a 4-wheeler in the Catskill Mountains for 3 days before I need to charge it. And then it only takes 6 hours to charge. So imagine, right, putting a an old-fashioned turnstile lawnmower on the front with the base of the endurance power chair without a seating system on it, and programming it like a Roomba to mow your lawn.
Right.
That's where the future needs to go.
Right.
We already have automatic lawnmowers coming out, but they're going to suffer the same industrial problem we see in almost every product. We're buying things just so that we can throw them away.
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter what it is. It could be your digital camera. It could be your computer. It could be a piece of software. Off. Remember, I automated my home. Yeah, I just queued that. So, and wheelchairs are a great example. You can spend up to $85,000 on a custom power wheelchair. They don't all cost that, but they don't all solve all the problems. So if you're in a situation that requires that, that's an $85,000 wheelchair that's going to end up in the dump in 3 to 5 years. Do you spend that much on a car you're going to throw away in 3 years?
No.
And
not on purpose, anyway.
Right. And that's for a lot of reasons. Some of it's the planned obsolescence we all always talk about. But some of that is just low quality, bad engineering, lack of caring.
Yep.
And with open hardware, it can be anything. And so, go forth and make it whatever you want it to be. But it is our goal to make enough of a show and to build enough of a network of other organizations and get enough people invested in what we're doing that we cannot be stopped. The interesting thing is that in the last 6 months, actually since probably March, it's really started to happen where people have never met, never been to where they are, know who we are. We do these tech expos, and it was our first time in LA in March, and dozens of people there, we're all local to LA, where I've never been, actually knew who we are and what we were doing. This morning, I got an email from someone in Indiana who was in an outlet store, and somebody told them about us. And that keeps happening, right?
Yep. So that was actually. So I know that you don't watch all of our shows, so you're not familiar with all the different labels we have and things. We a lot of times do the interviews like this as either a spotlight on Liberty or an LPA live. And the solidarity stream tends to be more about how we can put aside. We can not put aside is not the right word. We can instead of finding the differences between us, look for the things that are the same and work together on them. That's where. That's why we have the spinoff group LP Solidarity that's trying to get people together and work across the country right now. It's big stuff, and I really wanted to make sure that you were on a solidarity stream thereby. This is a thing that shows, in my opinion, the type, and not just my opinion. I'm saying this for pretty much all of LPA at this point, that we can't accept that the government or corporations or whoever the boogeyman is at this time has control of us. We have got to stand together, say, hey man, this is a problem that's got to be solved, and get everyone who cares about that problem together to go solve that issue. Disability is big for me. For those that don't know, my sister's disabled, and that, happened when I was 6 years old. So from my perspective, pretty much the entire time I've been, me, she has been how she is. Leah doesn't have a mobility issue, but has she had brain damage from a liver transplant, and so this, this is something that's been near and dear to my heart for close to 30 years now. On January 1st, it will be 30 years. And so when you you were explaining this to me in the first place, and you asked if I wanted to help or anything else. It was one of the like, clearly, this is a thing that means a ton to me personally. It's something that's going to help everybody else, and it's a big part of the movement. You know, a lot of people look at the libertarian movement. I know I'm stealing some of your time here, but it's
Wow.
they look at the libertarian movement and they're like, ah, it's a political movement. And it is a political movement. That's absolutely true. But we're here talking about how getting wheelchairs for people who need a wheelchair to be able to leave their home is a political thing. We're really bad about saying, I don't like politics. But at the end of the day, the politics has wormed its way into everything. We've got to care about all the politics. You know, the child behind Tom in that picture wouldn't be allowed to go be a normal kid, like Tom was explaining earlier. If we let the government do what the government was going to do to Tom, Tom may not be here now. We're to the point where we have to fight for these things. You know, I've really appreciated working with MIF. And in a similar vein, like I think that you've been excited watching some of the stuff LPA is doing, because there's been such a fight in the party and in the movement as a whole about what right looks like, and that's nonsense. It's kind of the same thing with the chair here. There is not one correct design for everybody. You have to build a platform and you have to build a system so that anybody can make do and can make their life and their system with that. So this is something that, you know, it means a lot to me, and I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you, Kyle. You know, there is one. We are open hardware, open source, and we do sometimes get flack from other people in the open hardware and open source realm because our designs are not out there as we design them. And there is a very key reason why. A wheelchair is a lifeline, and a bad wheelchair is a death trap. There are statistics out there on how harmful a bad wheelchair can be. In fact, wheelchairs have made the top 30 most dangerous consumer goods list, and it's measured by death and medical appointments and emergency room visits, right? The reality here is we're all libertarians, right? Wheelchairs make that list. Guns don't.
Yep.
And our society is going to be judged on how it treated those who were bestowed with the most strife, the most problems, right? Every society throughout history is always judged by how it treated those at the bottom. And, you know, there are plenty of people with disabilities that the wheelchairs they have, they can do plenty of great things, and that's fine. Power to them. But I tell you what, when I talk to them, they still suffer these problems. And not all of us can do what a lot of these people can do. Really, these are very different. So the real asset of open hardware in this realm is that it's modifiable. You know, whatever you've got going on, you can find that solution. So it is our prerogative to make sure that the base design that we release for the Endurance Power Chair is safe. It has to be safe. As someone with over 2,000 fractures under his belt, I can tell you they have to be safe, because several wheelchairs in my life have severely injured me.
Right. I'm sorry that I'm not staring at the screen at the moment and looking at you thereby. I'm trying to find the picture from a week or two ago where you were out shooting, and I thought that would be a fun one. So I am paying attention. I'm just trying to find it, and there's a lot of posts to go through.
That's actually older than a couple of weeks. I just reposted it. It's from a video of me firing an AR-15 in 2020 when I was running for state senate in New York as a libertarian.
I know it exists. Was it on LinkedIn and not Facebook? I thought it was Facebook.
It is Facebook, but I have no idea.
Okay.
So I want to point out this QR code again, right? Mm-hmm. Every bit matters. If you can give us $5 or $50 a month, please do so. If you can give us $1,000 at once, please do so. Whatever it is will help us actually give away wheelchairs next year. Custom. Um, and this came about, right? We were at a STEM center. That's where the science, technology, engineering, math, um, and they teach that to kids, high schoolers and younger college students. And we're talking to the president of this STEM center, who's very involved in everything at the STEM center, um, about the endurance power chair and the technology that goes into it. And he gets this, like, the thinky face, right? He's got a thought. Um, and then he pipes up and he yells across the room and he calls a 16-year-old kid over. 16-year-old kid. Tells him exactly what we just told him about all the different aspects of this chair.
Right.
And says, how long do you think it'll take you to build it if you had all the parts in front of you? Kid goes, 3 weeks. Now, our systems of provision are outperformed by a 16-year-old child. Our systems of provision are outperformed by strangers on the internet who crowdfunded my wheelchair, right?
Yeah.
When we talk to the people in this industry who are shuffling the paperwork and trying to do the justifications, right?
Right.
What we hear most often is, I wish I were allowed to help you better. I wish I were allowed to do more. A lot of these companies wish they were allowed to make better equipment.
Yeah.
And that's because they're playing the wrong game, man. They're just playing the wrong game. They're playing by the rules of a crony-saturated system that is not only for profit, but willing to profit on suffering.
Right.
And there's a difference.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Benevolence is solving a problem and sharing the solution. The opposite of benevolence, I don't know that word, do you?
Malevolence.
Oh, hey, there you go. Is figuring out the solution, making it hard to get, and even impossible in some cases. So creating this system of suffering. If you watch our documentary, we actually have a former U.S. Surgeon General stating we do not have a health care system. We have a sick reimbursement system. And that tells us that the incentives are flipped, right? The incentive is not to make Tom Queter go forth and do in the world. The incentive is to make Tom Queter sit still for as long as possible and become a cash cow. And that's a very different situation. Open Hardware and the Mobility Independence Foundation is here to bring many different solutions that are easily altered for whatever situation to as many people as possible. And it's global. It is global because it's a design on the internet. And typically, no matter where you are in the world, you can access the internet. So this could solve problems worldwide. It could solve resource problems worldwide. It could solve a lot of health problems. Here's the other thing people don't realize. If you get a poorly fit or an inadequate wheelchair that doesn't facilitate you to be active and healthy, well, then your health is going to degrade. And you're going to need more doctor's appointments, more medications, more surgeries even sometimes. I have run into people with poorly fit wheelchairs that disrupted their circulatory system and they had to have surgery because of it. Right? And that's a difference of a half inch on a seat pan.
It's my mom blew a hip in 2018, and it took almost 2 years before she got the surgery. And now she's got permanent problems in her legs from having to sit that long.
Yep.
It's absolutely monstrous. Our care is absurdly expensive. The regulations around the care is absurdly expensive. And the only solution that they want to offer is, well, what if we took over all of your care? Wouldn't that solve the problem? Which, honestly, as someone who's dealt with the system as much as I have, and I know that you've dealt even more, that's terrible. terrifying to me. There's not anything that I think is a worse plan than letting our government have control of it all.
That's a fair point, because what I've found in life is that the farther I remove myself from these systems of dependence, little by little, the better my life becomes. I can tell you that I can't remember the last time I had a nightmare. I can't remember the last time I had an anxiety attack. I can't remember the last time I was depressed or suicidal. And that's all because of my efforts that have freed me. Now, when my wheelchair breaks down, I don't think I have to sit still for 5 months to 8 months or however long. I can still do things because, hey, I now have a network of people who understand how to repair this chair. And it's a phone
Right.
call, and at most, maybe a few weeks, but usually it's a few days, because the people that know what the people that don't know can just talk to the people that don't know on the phone.
Yeah.
That's something you don't get through the industry. Um, and
It's
we have
that's one of the conversations we had about brackets on the chair and the designs and everything else to make sure that they were fabricatable by anybody who's got the ability to cut steel or aluminum, bend steel and aluminum, and do basic welding or screw it together.
and so that brings another point, right? Um, this is not, absolutely not, rocket science. Um, this
Can't confirm.
right. This is a lack of knowledge being shared. In terms of the right to repair, right, we see these right to repair bills come through a lot, um, and they fail, right? Look at
Yeah.
California. California just passed a statewide right to repair bill for wheelchairs, and it was whittled down by an entity called NCART, NCART. Um, and what they did was they got it so that you have the right to repair your wheelchair, except for the HID, except for the motor controller, except for the wheels, except for the motor, except for the frame, until there's nothing left to repair. I mean, it's one of those laws that libertarians like to joke about. I'm surprised they didn't make it illegal to own a dog. Um, but they still have that title, right to repair your wheelchair bill, right? And
Right.
and the reality is, it's not that. It's not that at all. I appreciate the efforts of those seeking that, um, and I support it wherever I can. However,
Sure.
um, if that movement is to win, it will take a long time. Politics is slow. We designed our entire system to be as slow as possible for a good reason. Um, but we don't have to be, right? I mean, Kyle and I can get together and say, well, we need this HID, and well, we've got 2 months. Oh, hey, 2 months, we've got a design, right? That's what happens. And we don't have to deal with the bureaucracy. And this year, we will release um, this guy right here, set him free from his cage, because that's what it is when you can't move. It's a cage. Um, it reminded me to tell you a story about that. And the endurance power chair. We have Northeastern University, which we're working with several universities now, um, working on a open source manual chair. And that's because people with manual chairs suffer the same right to repair problems. Part of that is a stranglehold on the parts supply. Part of that is the fact that our um, network of those who can provide service and sales is too small, right? We have more people living longer, we have more children surviving disability, and therefore the need is going up. And that's because our medical abilities, right? Yay, we get to stay alive, right? I'm alive today, but how about allowing life? Um, so this is how we take back an industry that was intended to serve us and no longer does. Um, that's correct, Dave. They've got deep pockets, and they love to buy politicians. Um, but they can't buy me.
Right.
I have
Um,
principles.
it So, you see an end in sight for endurance and for the, I want to call it the training chair. Um, what's next? So, what do you want to stay mostly in the wheelchair space? Do you want to expand to other? Um,
Okay. Yeah, there's a long list of equipment needs because we just discussed, different disabilities are different. Different people with the same disability are different. There's all kinds of different needs. Do you know what a screen reader is, Kyle?
a screen reader, like the automatic reads the screen for you.
For the blind? Yes.
Hmm.
You know how much that software can cost?
I do not.
Well, I have a blind friend up the road, and she told me that hers costs about $9,000.
Good lord.
Software is the easiest thing to open source.
Yeah.
So, that's one thing on my list. There are all kinds of equipment out there. Um, and ideally, what will happen is that once we've made our point with the endurance and a few other projects, we will create this ecosphere through our web portal that's also being designed for people to come together, um, bring up their problem, and have a bunch of people who are good at solving problems work on solving that problem. So
Right.
ideally, right, we will become obsolete. The organization won't be necessary. Just that system of collaboration and talking to each other. You might call it democratizing engineering, um, and getting around the government rules. It's interesting. We also have a seating system in development. It started with University of Rochester. They came up with the base prototype, and when that project was being judged, one of the higher ups, I'm told by my contact, that said that's genius. That's the best way to get around the FDA. And I have defied the FDA in the past. I was 15 years old when I had to find a way around government regulations to receive a life-saving drug. And myself and a few hundred other people did the same thing at the same time. And while technically that drug is not coded for our condition, um, now most of us are getting it if we want it, and it's expanded beyond that. And nobody bats an eye. Me personally, at that time, my argument with the insurance company was real easy. You can pay for this drug, or you can pay for the um, unending, repeated hospital stays, right? And hospital stays are not cheap, so they saw a cost benefit. Um, it's funny. It's funny how you don't need regulatory approval for an insurance company to give you a medication when it's a cost benefit. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Um,
It's how the
but
system works. It's very sad.
and so that's another thing that we want to point out, specifically with the endurance power chair, right? Um, we intend for it to be a minimum of a 30-year chair. And that's with maintenance and the fact that you can replace any of the parts, all off the rack, the fact that you can upgrade it. Um, the other thing about a long lifespan chair is that it's not uncommon for people with disabilities to pass away just like anybody else. And if that chair is custom fit for that person, it can be refit for another person quite easily. Uh, you might have driven your dad's old car first, right? When
Yeah.
you went to the first car, right? Um, you might see your friends with kids who have these like little Jeep toys. They sit in the ride and they're electric, right? I've seen
Yep.
those things last generations, man. Three
Yeah.
three levels of children. That's a toy, but our wheelchairs are breaking down at a rate of 50% of them every 6 months. And they go to the dump in 3 to 5 years. Um, we built a robot that we sent to Mars that lasted for 14 years without being touched by human hands. And our wheelchairs are breaking down at the rate of 50% every 6 months and not lasting more than 3 to 5 years.
I worked
And
on that robot.
damn you, Kyle. Um,
Well, now I'm working with you, so hopefully I'll help here.
and that's the goal, right? That's the goal. Um, so we have yourself, right? You're an aerospace engineer.
Yes.
That sounds like something you might working, or someone you might want working under with, sir. Um,
I mean, if we're ever going to get it off the ground,
I'm here for it. Um, and we've got Jim Beck, who's down near you in Georgia. He's got 30 years experience with an electronic company. Um, we have Matt Lacey. Matt Lacey is the reason that I went forward with this. He's the guy that. So I told you I had crowdfunded a chair, but it broke down as we've been discussing,
right?
and he's the one that kept it going. And through that process of him repairing the chair and showing me just how easy it is and how much more easy it could be, um, I just said, we got to do something about this. I called him one day. I said, let's start a nonprofit and let's do some open source work. And he thought about it. He said, okay, let's try it. And here we are now, right?
Mm-hmm.
In October on the 15th, the organization turns 3 years old by the date that we formed the board, and that's a pretty amazing feat in 3 years, right?
Oh yeah.
Multiple,
The efforts that became curiosity started before I was born.
yeah. So you think about that, right? We have found people who care. Like take Jim. Jim's an excellent example. I've tried to pay him. He won't take money. Then I really should talk about a lead mechanical engineer more in this. He has full body CP, right? Everything is affected.
What is CP for?
Cerebral palsy. He lacks motor control function. His mind, though, is amazing.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And he, by the way, he goes live on a regular schedule on our YouTube when he's working in SolidWorks on the endurance power chair. If you're that interested, you can go to the themif.org. At the bottom is all our socials. That YouTube, click, like, subscribe, share, all that happy garbage that every other libertarian with a podcast tells you to do. Sorry, Kyle.
It's we're strongly of the opinion that the movement's open source, and so everyone's got to work together on everything.
Right on. So Devin, he's a graduated mechanical engineer, Rochester Institute of Technology. We're now working with. I wonder how that happened. Devin has designed and patented 2 wheelchairs that he's not able to bring to market.
Just bonkers.
I don't know all the details as to why he can't bring it to market, but I can guess. And I know of one situation that may or may not be similar. I know a woman that spent over $4 million to get a seat cushion approved. A seat cushion. It didn't take $4 million to develop a seat cushion.
So, and I'm sure this number has gone up since then. In 2010 or 11, it cost $75,000 to change the color of a seatbelt in a car. That's how much it cost to get, if you just changed the die, how much it would cost to go recertify that seatbelt. It's what happens when the government's involved. And the only thing that matters is, do you have enough enough money to pay the government off?
And therefore, we're back to the situation of buying our rights.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe everybody should have the right to leave their home. Don't care who you are. But I want to, on the note of thank yous, right? I have a list, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, go for it.
So I've already mentioned Matt Lacey. He's my left-hand man, if you will. I have to mention Tom Pinkasoff, who helps me with a lot of the organizational details, tracking the money, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and trying not to piss people off, which is sometimes hard for me.
Tell him to come back to the LP.
In his own way, with me, he is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
I just like to give him a hard time.
then I, of course, have to thank my mother, who served as our treasurer at first, because she used to be a purchasing clerk for a university and has a head for numbers in the software you use. Excuse me. Um, then, Andrew Wyant, he is a gentleman um, of a mindset like my own, who is a partial quadriplegic. That means he has some use of his hands. Um, he is our vice secretary. He fills in when the secretary isn't there. And that leads me to Jonathan Howe. Jonathan Howe is just a saint. He actually did try to run for Congress when redistricting happened here in New York against AOC. Uh, but you know how they do with the redistricting. And Jonathan, Jonathan has been, relatively close to me for some time. And, he came on as secretary. Jonathan is a public defender in the Bronx. He also saves kitties. Uh, he's constantly saving cats, and he's constantly saving children in the system. And of course, he's on board with this. Then let's see, who am I forgetting? Am I forgetting anybody? I'm not really forgetting them. I'm thinking of them. Um, Emily Goldberg. She used to be chair of Arizona LP.
Yep.
And she has a lifelong dedication to activism. It goes back a long time. And Emily has been our Western, if you will, contact. She got us a meeting with Arizona State University that led to this children's wheelchair. The creator of which is a medical doctor with an engineering degree, engineering background from Ecuador. And because he's from Ecuador and has seen some lack of provision and is also a medical doctor, um, we all think that's why he won, right? He had the passion, he had the experience, and he saw the things that said, hey, this is what we need to do. And interestingly, Daniel is going to be our newest member of the board as of our meeting next month. Because why not? He's a medical doctor. He's passionate. He's already suggested to me that he has an idea that he wants to pursue. He has some connections to people who could help fund us. That's the perfect person, right? He's young and he's chipper, and he just wants to take on the whole world. But Emily organizes everything when we go west. And she sets up a lot of appointments. She's the reason that I am now friends with Jim Cantrell.
Jim Cantrell is a cool guy.
He is. He's amazing. He actually does the same for old muscle cars as to what we're doing for wheelchairs.
Yeah. I've actually known of Jim since before becoming a libertarian. I've been a libertarian for 25 years. I like, he's kind of got the dream for an aerospace engineer, right? Owns a space group, owns a racing group, races cars. It's incredible.
I actually got to ride one of his race cars.
Nice.
And I got to tow his other race car with the Endurance.
Very cool.
Now, Jim is a great guy. You can tell that he cares. You can tell that he means it. But, you have to think, I went from being trapped in my apartment for 5 years thinking I would never again leave it to now I am friends with Jim Cantrell.
Yeah.
I believe he was one of the founders of SpaceX, too, before he went on to do Phantom Aerospace.
Yeah.
We can only imagine how that rift happened.
So we have been considering seeing about getting Jim on. He's offered before. So
I highly recommend it. If you're watching, Jim, be a part of the gang. Without all of these people, it wouldn't be working.
Right.
Now, and sometimes I'm bad at showing my gratitude because I have a mission and I like to work and I stay my head on the work, right? Sometimes that means that I am punchy and straightforward, and I am less emotional and soft. Although this all comes from the place of caring, right? I don't want anybody to suffer the way I did or the way I've seen others suffer, and it's important to me to reiterate that everyone that I've mentioned and more or why this happened. What I did, right, and this is key for anybody out there with any kind of problem in any realm of their life. What I did was discover my problem, network with people who helped me solve that problem, get that problem done, and decide to share those solutions with the world, right? I reached out and I asked for help. I'm not an engineer, right? I'm not a business professional. I'm becoming one. Um, I'm not a college graduate. You know what I am, Kyle?
Resilient?
I am a barefoot farm boy.
Yeah. I think that's
Uh,
the same thing I said.
I, it is about staying the course. It is about tenacity, and it is about not letting other people tell you what to do. And that's another thing about the industry when it comes to the provision of wheelchair series systems. No matter where you're getting them from, it is other people that tell you what you get. Your amount of decision in that is very little. Um, right from the get go when it comes to the designs on the market, right? It is other people telling those companies what they can sell, and then it is other people telling your PTs and OTs what they can pitch, and
Right.
it is other people telling your social workers what avenues there are, and then it is all of them coming together, whether they're directly involved or not with you, and telling you what you can get. And I
Yep.
say that's bullshit. Um,
Agreed.
if you want a tank, Kyle, go get a tank, build it. Um,
I want a tank.
I, I just purchased a tank actually in Dallas. It's not a real tank; it's just a little figurine for the shop. But I needed a souvenir. Um, the reality of open hardware again, right? This is a chassis. It's a base. It's four wheels, two motors, and a transmission on a frame.
Right. Mhm.
And there are an awful lot of things you can do with that.
Yeah.
You could, well, we already discussed the lawnmower, right? But
Mhm.
you could put a container on top, and now it's a wagon that follows you around the garden. Um, you could send it to your neighbor's house to bring back a cup of sugar.
Right.
um, and actually, as Devin proved, you can put a snowplow on it and plow your neighbor's driveway. He lives in the Rochester area. And there's more initiative behind all of this, right? We're talking about tech an awful lot, and the systems and how they fail, and how we're not doing nearly as good as we easily could for people in need. Um, but there is still a lot of people argue me on this. There is still a huge stigma against those with disabilities.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I can prove this with one story. Hopefully, Devin
Both
doesn't.
ways too.
Hopefully, Devin doesn't mind me telling it, but I think he's pretty okay with it because he kind of allowed himself. Um, when he was plowing those driveways, somebody saw him outside on his own and called the cops. Right. So because he's in a wheelchair and on his own, right? Um, they called the police. He now had a interaction. I mean, it went well. It wasn't bad, right? He didn't get beat up, but we all know what it means when you call the police. You're calling man with a gun.
Yeah.
And that's because they assumed that he must be runaway or rogue or not in control of himself. And even I get that reaction, Kyle. When I make a new friend and I tell them, you know, I suffer the case of the pit or the pedestal, right? The pit or the pedestal.
Yep.
Um, if I am not 10 times better than you at something, um, I will be seen as in the pit. Um, but at the same time, other things, if I blow my own nose, there are people who are going to put me on a pedestal. And both of those are wrong.
Yeah,
Both of those are wrong. Um, so when we get
you're just a
more and
dude.
more, when we get more and more people outside, living their lives, pursuing their purpose, helping others and each other in wheelchairs with disabilities, then we are suddenly out there. We are seen, we are heard. And right now we're not. Quite a lot of us are not. You can find all kinds of influencers on the internet, and I disagree with that term. I think they're entertainers more than influencers. Some of them really are influencers. I have been told that I am now an influencer because rather than
I think
doing
if
the
you take Phil's advice, you're going to be an influencer quicker.
right, um,
Got to get you into that killdozer chair with the belt-fed machine guns.
got a welder. Um, so the reality is right. Um, People don't know what they don't experience, and because we're yes, he's right.
Mhm.
Because we're trapped often enough by our equipment's lack of ability, right?
Okay.
Um, a lack of accessibility sometimes. Um, then we are not seen and we are not heard. When we showed the documentary in Palm Springs in June, um, one of my colleagues said that when I took the microphone for the Q&A, they leaned over and said, I didn't know what to expect from him. I didn't know if he could speak. But I get it, right? I look very different. I mean, and this is a
Sure.
good angle, right? This is a good angle. This is the same angle that called a Democratic State Committee member in New York to say I was pretty. Um, um, but the reality is, as the picture you put up earlier, my feet are upside down, right? My knees point to the sides. I am kind of shaped like a potato. And it's different, right? It's different. And we have evolved to recognize differences and initially treat them as bad for a reason. Because, when we were hominids in the jungle without civilization, that we might run across a poisonous snake. And if we didn't recognize it and didn't know it wasn't poisonous, we would be well served to treat that with fear. Um, and fear does a lot of things. But the reality here is, right, we are just humans. We're not a poisonous snake. Society has advanced. Um, Darwin's rules don't quite apply because we are human beings with capabilities who can think and feel. Um, I shouldn't be expected to die under the theory of Darwinism because we're human beings.
Right.
And when I meet someone who doesn't believe that people do actually still treat me that way, I take them to the grocery store. I tell them, walk 10 feet behind me, watch what happens. And I say hi to everybody I pass, right? And you'll see very few people engage in a normal human manner. Some of them do. Most of them, well, will do one of a few things, right? There's the ones that look up and away and just don't say anything and like walk faster. That's always fun.
That'd be
Uh,
me, but it's only because it's you, Tom.
right. Then there are those that kind of look and scowl and move on. And then there are those who talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Kyle, can you imagine today as you are some stranger in a grocery store talking to you like you're 5 years old?
No.
Can you imagine what that would feel like?
I think I can, and I would be pretty upset about this.
Um, I have learned strategies to get around that, right? Because the only way they're going to learn is if I speak, right? So when these incidents happen, we just start talking, right? The more you talk, the more you're seen and heard, and the more they understand. So even though I was the president and founder of a national foundation now. Um,
So JJ points out that while he was working at the welfare office, he was stopped
yep,
by security because they were sure someone who had a brace and a cane couldn't work there.
yep.
Um, and for those who are unaware, JJ can in fact work in lots of places, and it's not uncommon.
I bet he could build a wheelchair. Um, yeah, and the reality there is that this movement, by increasing our tech, by increasing our access to the world,
Mhm.
will do a few things. Like we become a market share at that point, and accessibility becomes a viable business tool. And people will choose it because they want our money,
Right.
right? I mean, if you're selling something, you need customers. And if 5.5 million people need a wider door, well, you want those 5.5 million people to spend their money at your store. Um, and it goes on from there. So, what happens when someone's wheelchair breaks down is that they have to call their provider who has to come out and verify the breakdown. And then you work together to get your insurance company to approve the repair. And then your provider orders the parts and sets another appointment to come out and fix it. Often enough, it's the wrong parts or they don't know what they're doing. Um, and that amount of bureaucracy and incompetence combined is why you can wait on average 5 months for a wheelchair repair. I keep running into people that it's been 5 years, just like me, and I know why. I know why the cutoff tends to be that 5 years, right? Because once a wheelchair is 5 years old, your insurance company is required to replace it. So if you're stuck in a defunct wheelchair for 5 years, don't worry, they'll replace it. Sometimes with the exact same wheelchair. Um, and
Hey, at least then you have spare parts.
maybe. So that's interesting, right? We talk about market control. Um, Last year's Model XYZ 234 wheelchair and this year's Model XYZ 234 wheelchair, some of those parts, particularly crucial ones or ones that they know are going to break down, can be tweaked in the process of manufacturing. And then
Right.
last year's wheelchair is no longer a parts chair for this year's wheelchair. You see that especially in the electronics. Um, yeah, and you see tech going downhill, right? They're switching to tires that are hollow and hard rubber, and you feel every bump. Um, I've seen wheelchairs with springs that are compressed the minute somebody sits in it, and that's not a suspension, right? A spring
No.
needs to be springy. Um, and it's
Ideally, it should basically work the same way a car suspension does, where you've got um, dampers and springs, and you know, for those who have the combined one, struts, so that you're not just feeling the direct hits from the ground.
guess what the endurance power chair has?
I don't know. I don't know.
Everything you just mentioned, plus an airbag system. That's an airbag suspension, not like impact. Uh,
Yet it's open. Someone will do it.
hey, it's open hardware. Do what you want. Um, but I find it interesting that we have a predatory industry that fails to put suspension on vehicles, which they are vehicles, uh, that our most frail people need.
Yeah.
Uh, and when I say they are vehicles, interestingly, the city of Portland nearby um, just threw wheelchairs into their e-bike regulation. Um, and so technically, and I doubt they'll enforce it, but technically by the wording, you'll have to license your wheelchair to use it on the sidewalk. Uh, somebody said
That's
this.
absurd.
Somebody said this because of everyone not needing a wheelchair using a wheelchair. That doesn't really happen that often.
Yeah.
There are a few cases. Um, might lose their license and might have somewhere to go. But even then, most of the wheelchairs that are available now, they're not going to get you anywhere. um, and then there's the legitimate cases, right? The part-time users, and there are many conditions that mean you can walk 20 feet, but not 20 miles.
Right.
Um, you might need to sit down every so often. Maybe you have a fainting disorder or a dizzy spell, and that's a valid reason for being a part-time wheelchair user.
Right.
And the able-bodied people who are not familiar with disabilities because they're not taught anything about disabilities and they can't learn from the real world because we're not seen and heard. They don't
Excuse me.
know,
Sorry.
right? They don't know that there are an awful lot of people. Um, kind of, Phil. Kind of. Sorry, I was reading that comment. Um, they're stuck in a bad mindset.
Ah.
They're trained, right?
Yep.
And that's what I'm getting at with getting people out in the world and being seen more. We can untrain them. There's this
It's
book out.
just to give the people who are listening and can't view an idea on it. Phil asked the question, or he said, "You said people treat you different. Are people just stuck in collectives, ignoring your individualism?" Which,
Yeah, but we all have one thing in common, even as individuals. We're human beings, and that's really what it comes down to.
right.
There is no respect in this system of provision. There is no human respect going on. Um, the the taxpayer or debt clock, however you want to look at it, takes the burden of cost, and it's in the name of helping, say, Tom Queter. Um, but it doesn't help Tom Queter. It costs a lot of money. It takes a long time. It causes a lot of unnecessary suffering for Tom Queter, and lands Tom Queter with a piece of equipment that doesn't work well, if at all. So that's the real point, right? These systems of benevolent supports, that they're not. Um, they work well for some people, but most people could have something so much better if we just stopped and thought and did it ourselves.
Absolutely. Um, so one of the things we talk about in the solidarity streams a lot, as far as the way we think that the LPA grows to the biggest and best it's ever been, is that like obviously everything is about getting people elected and everything else, but the way that that's done is through activism and bringing people into the movement by giving them something to do. Um, and I've you've talked about it all the way through the talk tonight about how as you've gone around, there's more and more people who are aware of who you are and what's going on before you get there. That's how we bring people in. That's how we get things happening. That's how our candidates get known in the first place.
Yeah, I'll back you up there, Kyle. I have seen so many, not just libertarians, but also Democrats and Republicans, right? They scream out about the problem. Where's the solution? What are you doing? Right? Get off of Twitter, get off of Facebook, and go build something. Start with a team and make something happen. Right? That's real world libertarianism.
Yes,
Libertarianism is so much more than politics. And the more real world libertarianism we actually bring to the world, the more people will actually consider our ideas.
absolutely. Um, and so, kind of, I guess we probably already see a basis of where this would go, but as kind of a final, there may be two questions. As one of the final questions here, what would you like to see going forward from both the party and the movement of libertarianism?
Oh, wow. Well, for the movement, I want to see more solutions. And for the party, just stop acting like children. Uh, I mean, most of us are at least over 18. Please behave that way. I became famous in the New York libertarian circles for saying that behavior matters.
Absolutely.
When we behave very, very poorly or meanly or negatively, people aren't going to listen to us. We're not something good in that moment, right? We're not.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
if you want to be, I don't know, MAGA or a Bernie bro, then go be angry.
Right. And then I guess for a final question, I'm bringing back a thing that we did for a while when we were interviewing people that we haven't done in a bit.
I don't do that for money anymore.
What? Your publicist told me. Oh man. So what is a book not written by a libertarian, not about libertarianism, that you would recommend to people?
Bunnicula, of course.
All right.
A children's book. It's fun, and it's about a rabbit that sucks the life out of vegetables.
Nothing wrong with that.
I am not. You know this, Kyle. I'm not a theorist. I don't like reading theory. I haven't read all of the philosophers that all these libertarians claim to have read.
Well, that's why we asked specifically about non-philosophy things, because
Yep.
if you go on any libertarian forum, you're going to get somebody telling you what you have to read to be a libertarian.
Yeah, actually, I got to change my mind. I got to change that. I got to change that answer. When I was a little kid, I was given this book called "How It Works," and it explained everything from a simple labor to the NASA space shuttle. Right? So you could learn as far as you wanted in many realms.
Gotcha.
And it was all about teaching you how things work. And I think that's part of where my problem solving nature came from.
Makes sense. That is a good one. That is a good answer for that reason. We're at about an hour and a half. That's probably a pretty solid place to cut this one here, unless anyone in the chat has any last minute questions they have for Tom or about the MIF or right to repair or anything else.
I would like to make one last statement.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's actually reiterating. Next year, we need to make a documentary about creating 3 endurance power chairs out of around 3 individuals. We have our mind of when this will happen, but we need applications. But in order to do all of this, we need money.
Right.
TheMIF.org, themif.org, we're miffed.
Or scan the QR code, it'll take you to the same place.
Right. And, $5 a month does us a lot of good. Larger sums do us a lot of good. But whatever you can do, help us change the world. Because I do foresee this becoming more than wheelchairs, more than medical equipment. I foresee, as we've discussed, lawnmowers and Roombas and products that last again.
Yeah. And even if you put it together poorly the first time and it doesn't last as well as you want, it'd be your fault and you can go fix it and make it better next time.
That's right. IKEA on steroids.
Right. So Phil Ryan does have one last question for you. The government abuses everyone. Do you ever feel like the government tokenizes your life for the safety net?
Yeah, constantly. I am the reason you pay taxes, so that you don't have the money to help me better than these systems that are tax funded too.
And he adds the secondary part there of while giving people poor solutions, they need support.
Correct.
Thank you very much for being on. For anybody that wants to share this out, obviously it's up on YouTube as a video podcast, but it will also be up on Spotify and Apple within the next couple days. Definitely go check out the MIF. I promise that even if you don't need mobility, the story, mobility solutions, that the story and everything that's there is absolutely fascinating. It's completely worth your time.
So there's a very good chance that if you don't need mobility equipment now, that you will. Aging becomes a disability. If you do not die suddenly, you will be beholden to this industry.
Absolutely true.
But I want to reiterate. I got to thank Kyle who's helping us. I got to thank all of our engineers.
You listed all those people that don't get paid, and I get paid a little bit. That's not fair.
Right. But there's Devin, there's James, there's Matt, there's Emily, there's my mother Donna, there's Tom, there's Andrew, there's Jonathan, and of course Daniel will be coming forward, and he gave us this design right here, right? Um, and everybody that's working on everything. I have lost track of how many people it is. I know we have about 30 core people, but then we have the people at the universities, the students that work on the projects, the people who talk about us, the people who share a message. Um, it is imperative. It is imperative to appreciate these people because it can't happen without them. It can't happen without you, and it can't happen without Louis Rossman, if anybody knows that name.
You know that name.
Um, he directed our first $500,000 to us.
Gotcha. That's very cool. So, all right, everybody. Coming up tomorrow, we've got the business list at 8 o'clock, like always. This weekend, we're attempting to find a stream for the Colorado Convention Part 2 that we think will count, but we don't know for sure. We also, at 8 o'clock on Saturday, are going to have Rebecca Massey on. It has been, to the day right now, 1 year since the government bodily threw her to the ground and temporarily, luckily, took her away from her child and put her in jail. So we'll be talking about that on Saturday. And
while you have Rebecca on the show, ask her why she refused to sing while riding the back of the Endurance Power Chair.
All right, will do. And then Sunday there's an LNC meeting, and as always we'll cover that. And then next week's gonna be exciting. On the 30th we'll have Spike Cohen on. So a lot of good stuff coming up, a lot of good things happening. Make sure to follow Tom everywhere. He's funny. He's always got insight. It's worth your time.
For reference, though, Spike Cohen did sing when he rode the back of my wheelchair.
It's true. If you can find that video for me, I will make sure to pull it up while he's on.
And we are partnered with You Are the Power. I'm sure everybody's aware of what they've been doing with these cases of families having their children ripped out of their arms by the government. And they're doing I think it's a 5K in October to raise money to help cover some of those legal costs for one of the families. And we're going to enter somebody in one of the test platforms of the Endurance Power Chair. So we will be supporting You With the Power in October.
Sounds great. So, I think I speak for everybody when we want to see where the MIF goes. And I obviously want to continue to see where the MIF goes because I want to continue to be part of it. Thank you very much, Tom, for being on, and we'll catch everybody tomorrow.